Good morning. My name is Sam. I am an alcoholic and I'm also a son of recovery. Let's start out with the Serenity Prayer. Good and gracious God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. So I'm reading through Recovery Dharma, how to use Buddhist practices and principles to heal the suffering of addiction. And I'm on the section called I'm on the section called Recovery is Possible. We only have a couple sections left. Actually, this is the last section before the appendix. So, this is the last section of the book. So, recovery is possible. In the pages of this book is a path, a set of principles and practices that can lead to the end of our suffering and see us through the damage that we piled onto ourselves through our addictions. The path is based on gaining and maintaining mindfulness of our feelings, bodies, minds, and experiences. During our journey, we come to accept that we're responsible for our own actions and that every choice has a consequence. If we act unskillfully or mindlessly, we will experience pain in our own feelings, thoughts, and experiences, and we may cause harm to others. We begin to recognize that every thought, feeling, and experience is only temporary impermanence, and that it will pass if we allow it to, and trusting this can provide a safe harbor in moments of craving or pain. We start to believe that even the most difficult, traumatic, and painful actions and events of our past don't define who we are today, nor do they define the possibilities in our future. It is our choices and actions now that define us. At the same time, we can start to notice and reflect on experience without getting attached to it or to the stories we tell ourselves about it. Selflessness. We come to accept that we can never satisfy all of our desires and cravings. We see this in our struggles and impermanence, with sickness and aging, not getting what we want or losing what we have, not feeling loved by those we desire or feeling rejected by those whose caring we want the most. We sometimes have to deal with the pain and situations that are painful or uncomfortable. Unsatisfactoriness. But with clear understanding, we can begin to choose more appropriate actions and responses to our experience. It is in this choice that we find freedom and relief from suffering. When we act with full awareness of each choice, or even the smallest action, we can begin to notice the motivations behind everything we do. We can begin to ask, is this action useful or not? Is it skillful or unskillful? Whenever we're confused or feel lost, we have meditation tools that we can use to simply return to the present moment or to our experience of the present as it is for us right now, and we can check in with our Sangha, our wise friends, for added perspective and compassionate support. So, what do we gain by practicing understanding, ethical conduct, and mindfulness? We're asked to sit with discomfort, to experience it without fear or resistance, and to know that it's impermanent. We learn that dukkha is part of the human condition, and efforts to avoid or deny it lead to more unhappiness and suffering. We've learned that we can never satisfy our desires through sense experiences, through chasing pleasure and trying to hold on to it. Every pleasant sense experience will end, and the more we try to hold on to it and turn desire into need or craving, the more we suffer dukkha. We're mindful that dissatisfaction and unhappiness have beginnings. By tracing the dissatisfaction or unhappiness back to its root, we can weed it out of the mind. We follow the Eightfold Path, which allows us to develop understanding. It teaches us the karmic advantage of compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. We learn the quiet satisfaction of living a more ethical and mindful life. What we are achieving is what in Buddhism is called sukha, or true happiness. This is not the temporary pleasure that comes from a high or other temporary sense experience, but the inner peace and well-being that comes from a balanced, mindful life. It is the opposite of the suffering and unsatisfactoriness of dukkha. Sukha is freedom from hate, greed, and confusion. It is an expansive approach to life, being able to sit with and move through the feelings of discomfort, dissatisfaction, and discontent. Many of us have been running from and denying dukkha for a very long time, but we have found that it is only when we stop running that we are able to truly access authentic happiness. We can practice the message, I am here. This is the way it is right now. This is a moment of suffering. May I give myself the care I need at this moment. May I accept this without struggling, but also without giving up. We've started to learn that mindfulness involves investigating our unskillful actions and choices, both past and present, and choosing to act with more wisdom in the future, rather than being bogged down by guilt or shame from the past. We can use it as a guide to making different choices in the present. As we devote energy to awakening and recovery, we'll learn to investigate our present and our past with wisdom rather than craving or aversion. We'll experience a growth of trust in our own capacity for and right to recovery. As we get a little clearer understanding of what we're doing in our lives, of the choices we are making, and the consequences of those choices, we gain the opportunity to develop generosity, loving kindness, forgiveness, and equanimity. These are central to Buddhist practice and to our recovery. We learn to give freely because we understand that clinging to what is mine is based on the delusion that we are what we possess or what we control. We learn to have metta, or loving kindness, toward all beings in the world, whether we know them or not. We come to understand that our practice isn't just for ourselves, but is based on the interconnectedness and happiness of all living beings. Recovery transforms how we show up for those around us. We can become the compassionate, generous, and wise friend whose common voice and steadfast support can help others to understand their own struggles and find their own path to healing. There is no magic bullet, no single action or practice that will end suffering. This is a path composed of a set of practices that help us deal with suffering and respond wisely to our own lives. We cannot escape or avoid dukkha, but we can begin to be more at peace knowing there is a path forward, a path with less suffering, less craving, less aversion, less destruction, and less shame. It's a path without an end. It requires effort and awareness, and we don't have to do it alone. Recovery is the lifelong process of recovering our true natures and finding a way to an enduring and non-harmful sense of happiness. In recovery, we can finally find the peace so many of us have been searching for in our addictions. We can break through our isolation and find a community of wise friends to support us on our path. We can build a home for ourselves, within ourselves, and we can help others do the same. The gift we give to ourselves, to one another, and to the world is one of courage, understanding, compassion, and serenity. We all experience growth differently and at our own pace, but the most important message of this book is that the journey, the healing, can start now for you and for each of us. May you find your path to recovery. May you trust in your own potential for awakening. Well, so there is an appendix, and they go through different types of meditations you can try. Different types of meditation. And then they have a lot of questions for inquiry for us about to explore more. Questions we can ask ourselves. And then just a glossary of terms. So, I do find this book very helpful. I've thoroughly enjoyed since a friend gave it to me. He came out of a recovery program, an inpatient in-person recovery, and he had used this book, and so he got me one because he knows how much I love recovery stuff, and he said this was really helpful to him, and I can see how it is very helpful to him, especially for people who are a little weary of 12-step programs because or they just haven't found the right 12-step program yet, because every 12-step meeting is different than the other one. Yes, they're all very similar, but they're very different because of the people who are involved, and sometimes it's just finding the right group that you need to be at. And so for him, this was the right recovery group that he found, and it wasn't a 12-step program, and that's fine. As any program will say, take what's good and leave behind what you don't need. And this one was the same. It said take what you need and graft it into your own program. I need a little bit more structure. I think this is an amazing beginning to a program. This is the first edition of this book that was published in August of 2019. So I'm hoping to get more stuff out of this program as it continues to grow, and I'm going to continue watching Recovery Dharma and hopefully participate in some of their meetings. But I'm anxious to see how this continues to move forward, because I think it's really useful and will continue to be for people. So, time for a prayer. This is a good one. Be at peace. Do not look forward in fear to the changes of life. Rather, look to them with full hope that as they arise, God will lead you safely through all things, and when you cannot stand it, God will carry you in his arms. Do not fear what will happen tomorrow. The same God who cares for you today will take care of you today and every day. God will either shield you from suffering or will give you unfailing strength to bear it. Be patient and put aside all anxious thoughts and imaginations. So with that, if you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, please leave them. The next book I'm going to be going through is actually 12 Secular Steps, written by Bill W. So this is going to be, I think, a wonderful experience for people who may not be looking for a real religious background, or coming from a very religious background, or maybe not interested in religion at all, but just are looking for 12 steps. So I think this is going to be a good next one to go through. So with that, if you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, please leave them. And as always, I hope you have a blessed day. Thanks.